things like flow wrestling, flow track, they give a lot of the shine to the Power Four schools. And being that we're junior college athletes, we like to promote the junior colleges, Division III, Division II, NAIA, because we know there's a lot of great coaches like yourselves with programs like yours that are doing amazing things, giving athletes opportunities and giving them platforms to go on to the next level. So we're just trying to spread the word. We do a lot of NJCAA coverage, but in the fall, we were able to preview the 3C2A State Championships in cross country. And so we know that wrestling takes place in the fall in California. So we wanted to give you guys some shine, talk about your program, learn a bit about more about you and what you got going on at Fresno City.
Beautiful.
Sweet. Ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. We are here, you are there, and you are now rocking with the best. We are ready to kick off 2026, get back on the saddle, get back on the mat. We're going belly to belly tonight with Coach Paul Keysaw. He is the head wrestling coach at Fresno City College. But before we get rolling, y'all know the drill. Make sure you hammer that like button and are subscribed on YouTube. Drop a comment. Every view, review, and share helps us grow and get back to the sports we love. Follow us on Instagram at Airey Bros Radio. Make sure you're subscribed on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As always, this episode is fueled by Black Sheep Endurance for all your ultra marathon and nutrition coaching needs. And let's not forget, we've got a value for value show over here, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're getting any value out of anything we're doing over here and you feel so inclined, give us a little bit of value back. Click on that link, buy us a coffee. We would greatly appreciate it. And at Airey Bros Radio, we're here to shine a light on the program's coaches and opportunities we wish we had access to growing up while we were going through the recruiting process. If you're an athlete, parent, or coach looking for real development, real culture, real opportunity, you're in the right place. Now on to tonight's guest. As I mentioned, Coach Paul Keysaw is joining us. He is in his 12th, or just finished his 12th season at Fresno City College. He has won 6 3C2A State Championships as a head coach in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2012, and 2016. They've had 9 podium finishes at the state tournament as a head coach. He's a 5-time California Community College Coach of the Year at Fresno City and 8-time Coach of the Year overall. He's a 1991 NCAA Division I National Champion at Cal State Bakersfield. He's a former head coach at Moore Park College, leading 3 more state titles. This season alone, they placed 3rd at the 3C2A State Championships. Freshman Alijah Ortiz at 125 and LJ Loreto at 149 were both state finalists. They battled Mount San Antonio and Cerritos College, 2 of the best programs in the country. Without further ado, it is an honor and pleasure to lace up the boots and step on the mat. Coach Paul Keysaw, we do greatly appreciate your time. It is an honor to have you joining us this evening. Welcome to the show.
Really appreciate you guys having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are excited to get into it, learn a little bit more. It's fun to learn about the 3C2A as we did during the cross-country season. We also found out that there's an NWAC conference up in the Pacific Northwest that has their own little thing going on. They do cross-country and track and field. They think the schools that up there that do have wrestling compete in the NJCAA. But we're excited to kick off the new year with you. Before we get rolling, any further, if you have anything you would like to plug or promote anywhere, we can send recruits, anyone of our friends or fans that are in California listening and want to learn more about the college. Anything you'd like to plug on the socials, the floor is yours.
We have I'm not too hip on all the social media, but we have our Instagram social media, Fresno City College Wrestling. We're also on Facebook, Fresno City College Wrestling. And we're on Instagram, Ram Wrestling Club, through our assistant coach, Georgie Moreno. He does a good job with that. And I think that's all the social media we have.
Awesome. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes for you as well. Coach, we love to share through lines here with our guests and make the world a little bit smaller as best as we can. Jimmy and I were raised to be students of the sports as lightweights. Things like football and obviously basketball weren't necessarily on the menu for us growing up. So wrestling was a sport that facilitated success because of weight classes. And whenever there was a wrestling tournament of any kind, whether it be the Goodwill Games, the NCAA Championships, the Olympics, there was a VHS tape in the VCR, and we were recording matches. And so when we were doing research for this episode, and we went back through the annals and saw that your match with one Randy Couture was on YouTube. It was one match that we had on our VHS tape. So it was fun to go back and see that. I remember watching it as a high schooler, a Cal State Bakersfield guy. Beating Oklahoma State guy. So to put those two things together, it was really cool. And also to know that you're from Pennsylvania, another East Coast guy with a couple of East Coast guys. It's always, those conversations always lend themselves to be pretty fun. So we're excited to chat with you.
Yes, for sure.
And one other one, when we were doing the 3C2A cross country preview show, we had Moore Park on. So we made that connection as well. We got to learn a little bit more about the college there. So, so the world gets smaller the older we get, is what I always like to say.
That is for sure. It does get smaller.
Yeah.
So, Coach, as Rich was reading off, you have had quite the career as a coach in the 3C2A, but we like to start stuff off with coaches' origin stories, how they got into the sport and how they got into coaching. How did you get into wrestling?
Well, I got into wrestling in third grade. They had an announcement at schools, come after school and pick up a permission slip and sign up for wrestling. And my buddy sitting next to me said, "Hey, let's do that." And so we went and picked up a permission slip, and my dad told me I could wrestle. The only thing I had to do was make it through the whole season. I couldn't quit. So I think that was fourth grade. And that's where I started wrestling. Athens High School, Athens YAD, youth league, youth whatever, in fourth grade. And I had Mr. Scanlon as my first ever wrestling coach. And to this day, I think he's probably one of the best wrestling coaches I ever had in my life. And a lot of things that I do in my practices are derived from Coach Scanlon. And he was my coach in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade.
What do you think he did that set him apart from other coaches you had?
You know what? Looking back on it, I think Coach Gatlin was the epitome of an educator. He was, a teacher and a coach. And, looking back and being a teacher now and trying to develop programs, everything had a purpose. There was a methodology to what he did and how he did it. And, I call it the tier effect. You built a foundation before you could move up to the next tier. And, I really felt like he built a really tremendous foundation. It wasn't just me, but my teams were pretty good. My junior year in high school, we took second in the state in Pennsylvania. Double A. I was a small school guy, but all of us on the team all started in Athens YAD. We all had Mr. Scanlon as a coach. So just and fundamentals. I think now, fundamentals, it's cyclical. Wrestling is cyclical and things go around, and you see a lot of these tremendous young talents right now, but they're all pretty fundamentally sound, and they make wrestling look pretty simple, but they do all the little things right. And I think Mr. Scanlon did a great job of emphasizing doing little things right all the time.
Coach, growing up in Pennsylvania, how did you wind up in Bakersfield?
Man, I don't really know. Um, That's a crazy story. I was at Bloomsburg for a couple of years and kind of had a falling out and needed to transfer. And, you know, no one wanted me to go to Bakersfield. No one wanted me to go to Bakersfield. And I don't know, I met this guy named Lou Montano. He was the assistant coach at Cal State Bakersfield. And from the first time I met that man, I call Lou my Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life. Clarence was the fallen angel, or the angel that was sent to save the guy in It's a Wonderful Life. And Lou was my Clarence. He just has had a tremendous impact on my life, and he's the reason I went to Cal State Bakersfield, and it turned out to be a really good decision for me. I had some success there, and I met my wife there, and I graduated from college there, and it turned out to be a really good decision. But how I got there, yeah, it's a little small town in PA, and I went to Bloomsburg, and was either Iowa State, Indiana, or Cal State Bakersfield. How the hell I got to Cal State Bakersfield, not really sure, but turned out good.
Yeah, I'll say. So, Coach, we also have a lot of friends and coaches and people. They have that, third or fourth grade story where they see the flyer for wrestling. When you got the flyer, was there any inclination that you were going to be doing like WWE, or did you know that you were getting into headgear and wrestling mats right from the get-go?
No, I knew I was getting into headgear and wrestling match right from the get-go. My
Yeah.
dad wrestled in high school.
Okay.
A couple of neighbor kids wrestled. My dad had already taken me to a wrestling dual meet, and I saw the dual meet. So yeah, we didn't watch WWE in my house.
Yeah, me
But
either.
after I started wrestling, then I figured it out.
Yeah.
But
Oh, and for the folks that are listening, they may not know geographically, where is Athens?
Athens is right on the New York State border, up above Scranton, Wilkes-Barre,
Okay.
almost directly south from Ithaca, New York,
Okay.
right where the Susquehanna River comes into the state of Pennsylvania for the second time.
Okay.
So it's in the boondocks.
Yeah.
There's more deer in my county than there are people.
So it was a bit of culture shock for you to go to Bakersfield?
Oh, it was huge. Yeah, I love telling the story. Like I had no idea what, burritos were or chimichangas or fajitas. I didn't know how to say those words. And yeah, it was, back east, we have, a big Puerto Rican population and, Dominicans but we don't really have a Hispanic and Mexican population. In California, they don't have Puerto Ricans out here, Dominicans, it's a very Hispanic, and California is very, the culture is very Hispanic. Like, everyone knows what a baño is, and there's certain things out here that, you live here, and Mexican food in California is like Italian food in New Jersey.
Yep.
It's the same. It's like, I mean, I know you can understand that.
Sure.
Yep.
No doubt. So, Coach, when along in your journey as a wrestler did you know you wanted to be a wrestling coach?
Well, when I was in sixth grade, my high school wrestling coach was my teacher. Well, my real teacher was the assistant coach. Coach Grego, his room was attached to Mr. Davies' room. So in sixth grade, I thought being a wrestling coach was the greatest thing because all the high school guys would come over and come talk to coach. And I remember in sixth grade, I just thought that was the coolest thing, that these high school kids are showing up in the junior high and coming to talk to coach. And I just thought he had the coolest job. So when I went to college, I majored in elementary education. Plus, I thought maybe that would be an easy major. It didn't turn out to be that easy of a major. But when I got into college and got wrestling and gotten through college, I really didn't have a desire to coach. I really didn't have a desire to teach. It wasn't really something that was on my landscape and really wasn't on my plate. I finished wrestling in March of 1991, and I thought since I won the national championships, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I had no plans after the national tournament. My whole life was the national tournament, and after that was over, we came back to school, and June my scholarship ran out, and I had to start actually like get a job and pay rent and actually like join the workforce, and I wasn't really ready, prepared for that. And I was selling cemetery property, and I didn't really like that job so much. And one day this guy named Tony Ovalle comes to my apartment and he says, "Paul, you'd be a good coach." I said, "Tony, I don't want to coach. If I coach, Tony, I'd have to coach someone like me. And why would I want to do that? I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that." "No, you'd be a good coach." And I was like, Tony, I don't think so." And so he left, and a couple of weeks later he came back. Well, I had to pay rent, and I was a little short on money and things, I was like, and so he came back, and I said, "Well, Tony, how much you think he would pay me?" He's like, "Well, I think if you ask for a couple thousand, maybe 2 or 3,000." I was like, that was in 1991. I thought that was a lot of money. And so he set up this meeting with this guy named Bill Clevis, and Bill is the coach at Bakersfield College. And we met at some restaurant, and we sat down and Bill chatted for a minute. And going into this meeting, mind you, I had no intention of being a coach. I didn't want to be a coach. $3,000 really wasn't going to solve my problem. I didn't really have aspirations to do this. So I just went to the meeting to kind of get Tony off my back. And so we sit down in this meeting and Clevis starts talking and, just kind of chumming it up. And then out of the blue, Clevis just asked me like, so, hey, how much money do you think you would need to coach? And so I immediately said, at least $4,000, $5,000. Because I'm thinking, if I doubled whatever Tony said, there's no way he's going to pay me that. And I'll be a son of a gun if he didn't stand up and shake my hand and say, welcome to the staff. And I was like, oh shit, like what have I done? Like, oh my God. And I remember the first day I walked into practice and there's like 25 kids in there and I didn't know anyone's name. And I have never been so nervous in my life. And it was really funny. But from that first year in junior college, I don't know what it was, but I just, what it was is I had fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And I think wrestling should be fun. And I enjoyed coaching those kids. And still to this day in junior college, I enjoy coaching those kids. So that's how I got into it. I didn't really I can't say as I grew up wanting to be a coach. And I think that's why I have been in it for so long is once I fell into it, it just seemed right. And this was what I was supposed to do.
Coach, you mentioned not wanting to coach and not wanting to teach, and you were going to school to be a teacher. I'm sure you see that all the time with kids that you coach, especially at the junior college level, not knowing what they want to do or majoring in something that maybe mom or dad said, hey, you should major in this, and they don't have any interest in it. How do you help kids that are in that path that really don't know what they want to do, but they do like wrestling?
You know what? I talk to them. You got to talk to them. I just talk to them, try to figure out their strengths and weaknesses. I didn't really enjoy school. I wasn't a big school guy, and here I am teaching school, and I tell kids that all the time. So, you're here to wrestle. It'll come to you, what you're good at. School's only hard if you don't go. If you don't go to school, school's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
For most kids, especially wrestlers, in our work ethic, school's not really that hard for us. It's just a matter of putting in time. I think for a lot of kids, it's just a matter of talking to them and figuring out it's not always what you want to do, it's what you're good at. And I think they're two different things. You want to do a lot of things, but you're good at these things. Well, I was always good at wrestling. It took me a while to learn to really love wrestling. I tell kids, you're going to work for the rest of your life, man. You're going to get up and go to work. I watched my dad was a plumber. I watched my mom was a secretary. I watch them get up and go to work every day. You're going to have to do that, and you got to kind of enjoy what you're going to do. So just talking to kids and, trying to hear them out. And I think a lot of times with kids, they live too much in a space and they need to get out. And the other thing I see with kids too is they're afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to talk to them and tell them, hey, give it a whirl, give it a try. You don't really know. I didn't know if I was going to be any good at a coach until I tried. So, I think that's the biggest thing. And, the other thing too, is I straight up tell kids, hey, you probably don't want to go to school right now. You just want to wrestle. That's fine. Stay eligible, go to class, get good grades. Because you know what happens at the end of 2 years, at the end of 4 or 5 or 6 semesters, they get what I call turned on to education. They start to figure out that they're not dumb. Athletes, we didn't spend our lives growing up reading books and writing papers and doing those things. We spend our time working on our bodies and exercising and doing those types of things. And, we're not dumb. And when kids get into school and they realize that, oh, I'm not actually dumb. I actually can do this. And, I think they kind of blossom, and it's really fun to watch them blossom and figure out what they want to do. And I'll be honest, most kids have no clue what the hell they want to do. And it takes going to college. And the other thing I tell kids is one of the things you got to do is figure out what you don't want to do. And I knew that I did not want to sell cemetery property. I was like, I don't want to do that. So coaching is a better option than that. And that's really how I'm here with you guys today. So, kids, you got to talk to them.
Coach, you just nailed it on the head. I had a junior college coach pretty much tell me the same thing that you just said. He told us, he said, hey, if you don't miss a class and you have a relationship with your professors, they will not fail you. If they know the face and they know the person, they'll figure out a way to work with you. And school was never my thing. Bunch of learning disabilities just came hard, right? But you just said with wrestling, you know how to show up and you know how to put the time in. And when I was able to take that from wrestling and bring it into college, it made school a lot easier. And like you said, I'm not dumb. I just been focusing on this for so long. Do you see that light come on with kids during
Oh,
their time at Fresno City?
oh, absolutely. Yes. And it's one of the greatest things to watch that light come on. And, I see it in the classroom and I see it on the wrestling mat, and you see it with their personality and when their life, because, I equate kids to weeds. I call them weeds. You get weeds in your yard and everyone's always trying to kill those weeds. Wrestlers, you just have to be careful how much water you give them because you don't want them to grow out of control. You just want to give them enough water to grow because they will grow. No matter where you plant them, they will grow. So yeah, I see that all the time with kids. And yeah, one of my favorite things is when they come and tell me, Coach, I got a B in this class. Yeah, Coach. I was like, yeah, way to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, Coach. And then, I love the smart kids too, because I tease them about getting a B out of smart kid this year. I'm like, hey, bro, I don't know how you're going to deal with this, but you got a B. And you know what? He was pissed. Coach, it's his first B. He was valedictorian in high school, and he was pissed he got a B. And he's probably still pissed. In fact, I'm not even going to tell you his name because he'll probably get mad because he's like, it's my first B ever. And he was genuinely upset.
Well, you also just said something pretty interesting, Coach, that, what I think, especially coming from New Jersey, um, there is a stigma about community college or junior college. They used to joke about it in our area. It's like, oh, you're going to Ocean County College. That's, the 13th grade of your high school. But you just mentioned you have a athlete on your team that's a valedictorian. So is there less of a stigma in the 3C2A within the community college in terms of
No,
getting athletes and recruiting athletes? No,
no,
it still
no.
has it.
And in fact, I think there's a more of a stigma now. I think since COVID, I think we have more of a stigma in California community college. And I'm not really sure what or why or how, I'll be honest. California community college, we don't have D3s in California. So I don't, off the top of my head, I mean, we have a handful of Division III schools, but not very many, and none that wrestle. So California, the community college system in California is really like a Division III program. Um, and most of our successful kids that matriculate end up in D3, D2, NAIA. And a lot of those, and not just in wrestling, but in a lot of our sports. And those kids are very successful. I've been really, I'll be dead honest, I've been flabbergasted the last 5 years at how I'm not able to get the types of kids that I've been able to get. In the last 5 years, I haven't been able to get the quality of kid out of high school that had the first 15 years. And it's a stigma thing. It's a social media thing. Everyone wants to be on social media and have their picture and, I'm going to this college and I'm going to this college and yeah, a lot of kids. And the other thing I see too is a lot of kids aren't into what I call the process. And wrestlers, I don't know why, but sometimes I just feel like wrestling in particular has a really bad way of self-evaluating. And a lot of wrestlers really think they're a little better than maybe kind of what they are. And I think they end up going to places that they're not that they can't compete at the Division I level, but right now you're not ready to compete at that level. But you go a couple of years here and you're going to move up. And we're seeing that right now with the transfer portal. We're seeing kids in D3. The D3 kid from Wartburg is wrestling at Iowa. I mean, what more do you want right there?
Mhm.
So we're seeing that. I just see a lot of kids. We do have a stigma, and I don't know what it is. I'll be dead honest with you. I don't know what it is. And I'm flabbergasted because I keep looking in the mirror going, is it me? I mean, it's got to be something, but it's not just wrestling that it's happening to. We're seeing it in all of our sports here in California Community College. Um, there is kind of a stigma to it, which is, fascinating. California Community College has I'm not from California, but we've had Olympians and Division I guys, and just at Fresno City College, Tom Flores went to Fresno City College. He was the head coach of the Raiders. They won the Super Bowl. We have a long list of professionals and big time people who have come through junior college. Joe Gonzalez wrestled at East Los Angeles College. We have tons of guys like that. So the history and I always tell kids, the road's already been paved for you. All you got to do is just be able to carry your backpack and go down it. You don't have to plow through the snow. We've had kids graduate from NYU. Like, yeah, so I don't know. The stigma thing has really got me. I'll be honest with you. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's interesting because, talking with some of the NJCAA coaches, places like Kansas and Iowa, Texas for cross country and track and field, it doesn't necessarily seem like there's that kind of stigma. Now, are there dormitories at Fresno City, or is it a commuter campus?
It is a commuter campus. We do not have dorms here. We are fortunate at Fresno because we do have Fresno State, and they have, it's not student housing, but it's so-called student housing. So we are able to, not provide, but get kids from out of the area
Right.
into some places. But I'll tell you, in California right now, one of the big things going on in community colleges is dorms.
Mhm.
There's probably 10, 15 colleges right now that are building dorms. And those colleges are having they're having some success in athletics because of those dorms and moving kids in. When I first started coaching in California Community College, you were restricted in your recruiting area to only your area, which usually was the county that your school was in. And then it broadened to the counties that your county touches. And now it's an open state recruiting. So I can recruit anywhere in the state. Technically, Fresno City, junior colleges, there's certain junior colleges that have permission to recruit out of state. But like Fresno City College, it's illegal for me to actively recruit out of state. Now, if a student athlete contacts me and they make what we call first contact, then I can contact them and we can go through the process. So, a lot has changed in the last 10, 15 years out here. And, we're starting to see the effects of that for sure.
Yeah. And talking with the coaches during the cross country season, there is some, from a student athlete perspective, one of the big things for a lot, at least for us, when we're promoting this and what we're trying to do is, we're trying to make kids aware that, you want to come out of 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, maybe, with as little debt as possible. And, the community college route definitely helps facilitate that process. And within California, it's even a little nicer incentive for in-state students to go to community colleges. Is that the same at Fresno City?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have to be careful how I say this, but the educational system in California is by far one of the best in the United States as far as what you just said, cost.
Yeah.
If you're an in-state resident, it costs you $500 a semester to go to school to junior college, and the price is the same across all junior colleges. Even out of state, it's, I want to say $2,500, $3,000 maybe for a semester. So you're looking at, $5,000, $6,000 for a year. California, you can get in-state residency in 1 year. The 4 years right now, it costs you about $3,500 a semester. So just over $7,000 a year for 1 year at a 4-year school. I think in Pennsylvania right now, to go to Bloomsburg or Lock Haven, you're looking at $10,000, $12,000.
Yeah.
And even the junior colleges, back there, the price is a lot steeper than that. So, that's the other baffling thing that goes as far as the stigma thing. And I mentioned like we have a valedictorian, at Fresno City College, we have an honors program. So you go through our honors program and graduate, you're guaranteed admission to any UC school in California. It's really hard to get in UCs, and the kid who graduated from NYU, he couldn't even have been able to fill out the application out of high school. He wouldn't even have they would have rejected his application, but he was able to come to junior college and, get a 3.5 and matriculate into NYU. So yeah, affordability it's one of the great, and I mean, if you qualify for a Pell Grant in California Community College, it's free. So that's a lot of people right there. Yeah. So it's cheap, man. The school is cheap. That's one good thing about it. But still, I'm still losing kids. They're moving to Nebraska and going to some NAIA school or something. I don't know. Like, good to you, buddy.
Is that something where having the conversation to sit down with the parents, does that help when you're explaining? I mean, obviously, being in California, I would imagine a lot of people are aware of this, or are parents not aware of this as well, too? Or is it common knowledge to most people that you're talking with?
I don't think a lot of parents really understand the recruiting process. I don't think many parents really understand going to college and especially athletics and athletic scholarships and all the things involved. You can really tell when you've dealt with a parent who has been through this process and understands a little bit about the process. But so much has changed from college, from when most of these parents went through college to college now. Yeah, and a lot of parents just are uneducated about it and don't do their homework very well. And and then you get some who do their homework very well. So, but I would say that most of the parents really don't. They could do a better job of educating themselves and understanding the lay of the land and what's happening.
Coach, when it comes to Fresno City College, is there any special majors or certificate programs that the college offers?
Yeah, Fresno City College, we have, I think this semester we have 25,000 students on my campus.
Wow.
So that's the other thing. I don't think people realize how big, and that's just one college. So we have over 40,000 students within what we call the state center. So there's 3, 4 colleges with Fresno City College, Clovis and Reedley. So we're talking a lot of students. So we have a fire academy, we have a police academy, we have a welding program. All those programs are blowing up right now. We have a nursing program, we have a rad tech program, we have a dental hygiene program. All of them are blowing up right now. And then, of course, you have your regular degree path programs too. So we have a little bit of kind of both of those. And one of the things in California, especially in the junior colleges, is we have a lot of, I forget the exact name of it, but they're transfer degrees where you can come to Fresno City and take your 60 units and get transferred into a state school. And it's kind of a a seamless kind of process. So, yeah, 24,000 students we're a big school. We have over 600 student athletes at Fresno City College.
Coach, you mentioned, sorry to cut you off. You mentioned the student population. So are those classes like all lecture halls, or are there smaller classes?
Well, college has really changed these days. There are lecture classes as well as online classes. So they kind of count all of those classes. And the 24,000 students is counting, your welding and your fire people and police academy and all of those. So yeah, it's big.
Coach, as long as you've been coaching at the junior college level in California, has the state championships always been in the fall semester?
It has. It moved to the fall semester, I believe, in 1982.
Okay.
It moved to the fall semester.
Now,
And you know what?
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I love it.
Yeah, that was my
I
question.
I absolutely love it. And my first couple of years when I was at Moore Park College, I fought like the Dickens to change the season. I wanted to change the season to a traditional season. Um, and I came within 2 votes of getting it turned to getting it to a traditional season. As I've coached in junior college longer, I have fallen in love with the fall season. And it really kind of makes me laugh. I see a lot of the Division I guys and I read about a lot of the talk about, what they're doing. And, they're really trying to get out of going over intercession and they're looking more going into the spring. Um, and I don't, I think somebody should really look at the fall. Wrestling season, in my opinion, is too long.
Hmm.
It's too long. And I think wrestling better aligns in the fall with football. I mean, you see some of the biggest dual meets we've ever had have been on football fields.
Hmm.
Um, and I think we'd be better served going to a fall semester. I don't know when the nationals would be before or after Christmas. I don't know. People could figure that out. But, football comes back in June and July. Wrestling could come back in July. And, you could start competing in late September, early October and have a national champ. I mean, the fall semester, my students do so much better in the fall semester while they're in season. They come right out of high school. They come into a structured program. They come into an accountability situation where they have to come to practice. School's all new. They don't really know the ropes yet. So they are going to class. They're doing their stuff. They're engaged. And I say they haven't learned bad habits yet. Spring semester, the sun comes out, things change, and now going to class becomes harder and things become harder. And so I think the NCAA should really look at the fall semester for wrestling because it's won me over. The other thing, and again, I should probably be careful. You guys might get some heat on this, but you know what? I feel like I have a life. I have a family. I have 2 kids. Um, I love coaching wrestling, but I also like when wrestling season's over and I get to do some other things. Wrestling recruiting in college, it's never really over, but um, it's nice to actually go to Thanksgiving dinner and it's
Hmm.
actually nice to celebrate Christmas and not worry about going to freaking practice in the morning and, getting there early to turn the heat on and it's nice. It's nice.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
We could have, double headers. You have a wrestling match and then you have the football game on Saturdays. That would be, like you said, some of the biggest, turnouts for wrestlings have been on football fields. You might be onto a concept there where on a regular basis you have, the dual meet for the wrestling match and then the football game to a full packed house stadium.
Yeah, no brainer to me.
Yeah.
Coach, during the spring semester, are you guys allowed to do conditioning and strength training like other teams do in the fall?
Yes, we are. So we have a full complement of off season. We have a weight class and we have an off season wrestling class. Um, so we do keep them involved. Yep.
You said before that in the past 5 years you haven't been able to get the type of recruits you were in the past, but this season you guys got third and you guys made it to the state finals in the duel. So how were you able to turn that around and have such a great season?
Coaching staff. My team that wrestled in those this season, this is the first season since I've been at Fresno City College since 2006 that I did not have a state placer in my lineup. I had 3 or 4 kids that were round of 12 blood round kids. So, I mean, they were right on the outskirts. And all 3 or 4 of those kids were all, third and fourth, second in the state. Alijah, LJ is not one of them, but Alijah was, and Brock and Austin. So, those blood round kids. But so that's what I mean. I'm used to having not state champions or state finalists or even top 3, top 4, but I'm used to getting 5, 6, 7, and 8 placing kids and blood round kids. And I don't I go back to that stigma, and now it's really hard to get those types of kids. Um, California has one state champion. We have one state champion, and it's I don't I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think it benefits the sport of wrestling. I don't think it benefits the growth of wrestling. Um, and a lot of these kids, they come and they have one breakout year and place 5th, 4th in the state tournament, and now all of a sudden, they're Division I worthy. All of a sudden now they're, going off to schools that I don't think they're quite ready to go off to. And, a lot of times those kids aren't having the most success, and it takes a while. College wrestling's a little different, and the process, and a lot of those kids come back home and now they're in debt, and, now they can't get their transcripts, and now they don't like wrestling. And now wrestling, now we don't, that's one less coach, that's one less person giving back to wrestling. And I think you see that a lot. And that's my thing, is like, I thought we want the sport of wrestling to grow. We need people to be successful. You need to graduate and be successful and give back. And that's kind of where I'm at on that.
So, Coach, I believe you said there you've been coaching at Fresno City since 2006. So I do the show notes. I'm sorry if we got the years wrong on the year. I saw you make a face when Rich said 12 years. So you've been there longer than 12 years, right?
I have, yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Coach.
And we've won 10 state championships. Not to, but 10.
I'm sorry.
So 16, 17, 18, 19, we won those 4 years in a row, and then we won again in 22. 21 we were third, 22 we won, 23 we were second, and then this year we were third.
So you said you were there since 2006. I believe, I'm not 100%, but did Juan Archuleta go to Fresno City?
Juan actually, I believe, went to Sacramento City College.
All right. All right.
Yep.
I got that wrong too. It's
He
it's
beat
the
our
break.
guy.
All right. So looking back at this season, all those years of coaching, how'd it go in your eyes?
We had a good year. I mean, I don't like losing. We made the state dual meet. We won the North again. We did a lot of good things this year. We just, we didn't have enough horses. Mount Sac and Cerritos had a few more horses that ran faster than we did, and that's just how it goes. We're going to try to get better for next year. We were very young. We only had 2 or 3 sophomores in the lineup this year, so we were very young. So that's encouraging moving forward. And yeah, it's just is what it is. Like I say, when you have a lot of success, people expect it to happen again, and it's really hard to win every year. It's not that easy.
And as far as recruiting, do you have kids coming in for next year, or will that happen more in the winter after states and stuff? You'll get more recruits.
Like I say, recruiting is never ending. Right now we're trying to make sure we're staying on top of any kids who might be bouncing back, kids who are leaving programs at mid-semester, things aren't working out. So we're, keeping an eye on those things, and definitely, picking out our kids for the high school to kids that we want to target for sure. Recruiting at junior college, it's almost, I don't like to say it this way, but we kind of get the leftovers. There's certain kids we're not out to recruit. I mean, I tell people always, parents ask me about recruiting, and I don't care what sport you're in. If you're getting recruited in 11th grade by a Division I school, you're probably a Division I athlete. If you haven't got any phone calls as a junior, and then all of a sudden your senior year you get a couple of phone calls, you might you might want to go through the process a little bit. And now with the portal, I people are jumping levels all the time. So Yeah, that's a hard thing to say though, man. That's a really hard thing to recruit people like that and tell them that, hey, like I think you can wrestle Division 1, but right now I think you should be over here. Like that's a hard thing.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you saying that because I think a lot of, especially coming from where we come from in New Jersey, everyone wants to go Division 1. But like you said prior, not everyone is a Division 1 athlete out of high school, and going to the junior college might help you get to that level and get the courses down, get your education down, and then, hey, now you can wrestle at a Division 1 program. You said not, there's kids that you're not looking to recruit. What is the key kind of recruit you're looking for?
Well, we want someone who's pretty good in wrestling, that's for sure. You know what? I tell kids when they come to Fresno City College is a diving board, and I want you to jump from here and go somewhere else. So I enjoy kids who are motivated to keep climbing the ladder. Um, I want kids who are interested in the process, who want to get better. Um, when you come and wrestle for me, I'm not the type of coach. We're not here to break you down and change everything. We're here to enhance what you have and teach you how to wrestle in college because college is a very different style than wrestling in high school. Um, I think one of the misconceptions too is, the better my kids do, the more successful I am. So it's inherent for me to root for them. And so, when a kid comes and competes for me, I mean, I'm rooting for them to be successful, not only in on the wrestling mat, of course, that's why they're there, but I've had a lot of kids that I have coached who have not made the starting team at the end of the year, who have turned out to be just absolutely wonderful human beings and done great things, and they've exceeded, I think, their own expectations. And I think, that's one of the things too that gets lost in this. Since I've been at Fresno City College, we've had some really competitive teams. And, every year it comes down, somebody doesn't make the team. And, we have 12. We can take 12 to the postseason, which is really, really cool. So we're kind of copy the NAIA on that. So, this year we took two 133 pounders and we took two 149 pounders. And, it gives a chance for all these kids to compete without knowing that, I have no chance. I'm a 118, I'm a 125 pounder, and I have no chance of beating my teammate at 125s. But with our system and the way we can do it, you can still wrestle the season and still have a chance to go to the postseason, especially if you're the second best kid on the team. And we had that this year. So I get a lot of kids who make the team or don't make the team, and it's heartbreaking. But there's success, success comes in different. I think success for everyone is different. Some people, wrestling success is success. I've had a lot of kids who, I just had a kid I talked to the other day, he became a cop. He just got married, had his first kid. I mean, you'd have thought this guy was an Olympic champion the way he talked about Fresno City College wrestling. And I couldn't be more proud of that young man. He's changing lives. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure where I get rambling sometimes, but
Gold.
Yeah.
Coach, you kind of just answered it without answering it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I coach cross country and track and field. I've coached wrestling as well. And as a high school coach, especially when I was a lot younger, it was always that dream, to be a Division 1 coach, or that was the gold standard to be a Division 1 coach. But the more and more we talk to coaches in the NAI Division 2, Division 3, and in the junior college systems, it's a really special thing, and you're touching lives in a different way. So I'm curious. Like I said, you kind of already answered this, but what has been your motivation or your inspiration to continue to coach in the California community college system?
I love kids. I love changing, you say changing lives. I love being part of kids' lives. I love opening doors for them. I love challenging them. My coaches did it for me. If it wasn't for my wrestling coaches, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. And I can understand them. I'm a wrestler. I can understand them. I have we have some similarities, and I've gone through some of those plights, and I love coaching these kids. And I coach. I feel like I'm a real, not, not the D1 guys aren't real coaches. Those guys are real coaches, but I do a lot. I don't have any committees. My assistant coaches all have full-time jobs. You just share in dreams, and these kids who are wrestling in junior college, I always tell people there's a reason why you end up in junior college, whether that's a talent thing, whether that's a school thing, whether that's a money thing. There's always a thing that puts you into junior college. And a lot of times with wrestlers, those things are in their own brain, and they just need to kind of get over them and work through them and get them out. And I enjoy watching people have success. I enjoy it. It makes me it tickles me to death. I just love that part of it. When I was early, I applied for a few D1 jobs. I thought I wanted to be a D1 coach. And, I applied for a couple of D1 jobs out here, and I didn't even get a sniff. I didn't even get an interview. And for a while, I was like, upset, brokenhearted, and the older I get, the more I don't have no regrets on where I coached. And like I say, I think, the Lord put me here for a reason, and he's kept me here for a reason. And you know what? I watch those D1 guys, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for them, man. But I just wonder how much of a life those guys have. Like, what do they do? Like, what do they like? I know a lot of those guys personally, and I think that's the other thing about coaching. I'm able to be part of these kids' lives because I have a life myself outside of wrestling. And I love wrestling, but I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I like getting away from wrestling.
It's good. Got to have a little bit of balance with everything, work life. That's a big thing with us over here too. I heard a stat the other day that California has the most high school wrestlers out of any state in the country. But at the same time, we just got news at the beginning of the week or the end of last week that CBU was going to be discontinuing the program. We had Coach Derek Moore on last year. With it being so many high school wrestlers, yet Division I opportunities are dwindling. We had, Fresno State cut their wrestling program for the second time a couple years ago. How do we continue to grow the sport of wrestling in the state of California?
Ooh, that's a good question. I wish I clearly could answer that question. We have 22 wrestling programs in community college on the men's side, and we have 19 wrestling programs on the women's side in California Community College. Without CBU, I think we're down to what, 4 or 5 now, Division I schools in California. I don't really know. I mean, the CSUs are a mess. Their budgets are a mess. The whole system is a mess. I don't know. It's heartbreaking, to be honest with you. I don't really know how to answer that question. It's heartbreaking to see because so many of these kids, all of our junior college kids, they have to go out of state, unless you can make it into San Francisco State or you can make it into Cal State Bakersfield. Going to Cal Poly is not an easy task. That's a tough school, tough academic school, tough to get into that school. You're not transferring into Stanford. They don't take transfers. So very few kids are going there. So your opportunities out here are extremely limited. You got Vanguard and Menlo, and now we have Westcliff, which have been blessings for our junior college kids. But I mean, I think the simple answer, I'm from the state of Pennsylvania. I don't know how many Division I programs are there, 10, 12, 15. But you go around PA and all the schools, and I try to tell this to California people, all the schools in Pennsylvania are coached by college graduates and college wrestlers. And they're teachers within the school. Most of them are teachers. In California, you get a lot of part-time coaches, guys who are construction guys or this guy or that guy, and they come for practice. So the amount of teachers who actually wrestle and coach wrestling is really small. In the high schools, it's really small. I can probably name 3 schools around here that are coached by their former high school kids who never even wrestled in junior college or a 4-year school. So their, lack of wrestling and their knowledge of wrestling is very limited and small. If you're not graduating kids, statistically speaking, most people live 100 miles from the college they graduated from. Fresno area right now, we're dying for coaches. You can't find wrestling coaches. We haven't had Fresno State since 2017, 2018, whatever it was when they dropped. Well, now we don't have wrestling coaches around because we don't have that school producing wrestling coaches. Cal State Bakersfield has them, and if you look around, Bakersfield, California, a lot of those high schools around there are coached by Cal State Bakersfield kids. So that's one of the reasons that it's dying. And I don't know. Out here in the West Coast, I mean, wrestling, it used to be huge. I mean, wrestling was very big out here, but I just educationally and the educational leadership right now in the state of California is not conducive for the sport of wrestling. It's not conducive. Just not conducive. I don't know how else to say that. It's heartbreaking. And the other thing I see a lot is wrestlers, we don't have a lot of administrators. Not many wrestlers are becoming athletic directors, becoming principals, are becoming these things. And I take note of these things. You watch basketball coaches and football coaches. And there are a lot of ADs that are basketball coaches and football coaches, and even baseball guys. And, those programs, they're not being cut. They're not, so I don't know really what the answer to that is, but it's really heartbreaking in this state to watch, CBU go down, Fresno State's gone down, Bakersfield's hanging on by a limb. Cal Poly's doing well. They're doing really well. And I think just a lot of it comes down with the administrative support and who supports wrestling. Not very many of them do. We need somebody from Oklahoma to move their ass out here to California, somebody from Iowa to say, hey. So I don't really know how to answer that one.
Well, we appreciate your insight. In addition to promoting the sport, we're always trying to grow the sport. We had a great conversation with Coach Moore. So it was a bit of a bummer. I was on vacation when the news broke, and I sent the information to Jimmy, and it's tough because it seemed like they had a good thing going on over there, and they were heading in the right direction. And it seems too. I think it was what's the school in Missouri? It escapes me right now, Jim. Lindenwood. They were another
Lindenwood.
school that transitioned from D2 up to D1, and then literally almost as soon as they got into D1, they were like, "All right, we're cutting wrestling." So I'm wondering if it's like, is it making the jump from Division 2 to Division 1, or coming from NAI to Division 2 that's causing the rift, or is it like you said, it's just we don't have enough former wrestlers that are moving up the ranks in administration and become athletic directors to continue to help support and grow the sport.
Well, it's absolutely money. I mean, I
Yeah.
think a lot of what happened to CBU was NIL money. They're in the Big 12 conference. They can't hang with that.
Mhm.
And wrestling's one of their more successful sports on that campus. They don't
Yeah.
have a lot of successful sports on that campus. Wrestling was one of the more successful sports on that campus. It, I don't know. Education's a really strange place right now. There's a lot of information out about CBU. They went through this whole, fundraising and raised millions of dollars. And, wrestling was part of that and raised all this money. And now they cut wrestling. And wrestling, it's been proven through Stanford and some of these other programs. When you rally wrestling people, the money comes and it shows up. And it showed up at CBU. And, now they're cutting it. And yeah, I don't really know. It's just heartbreaking. It's
Mm.
just, I don't know. Wrestlers aren't good politicians. Jim Jordan's a pretty good politician, but typically we're not very good politicians. And, I will say that a lot of times wrestling, we don't help our own cause. I
Right.
think we do too much of our own work. I think we solve too much of our own problems. I think a lot of times wrestling, we don't ask for help. We don't look to our athletic directors or those types of people for help. Um, since I've been at full time, at Fresno City College, I'm always fascinated to go into meetings and listen to our football coaches and basketball coaches and the things that they ask for. And, I've gotten a lot braver over the years and started kind of asking for things like they do. And yeah, I don't know if that's really to solve the answer for wrestling, but I think a lot of times we're our own worst enemies because we do our own stuff and we don't tell our stories and we don't let people, and wrestling's hard. People don't understand wrestling. Like people do not, like they don't get it. Like one of my favorite things that I like that a couple of years ago, we had a situation at Fresno City College and I was an interim athletic director and they put our basketball coach on administrative leave. And so I became the interim head basketball coach at Fresno City College. I'm 3-0, by the way, 2-0. So I don't know if any other wrestling coach can say that they're 3-0 as a basketball coach. And so I showed up on the first day of being the interim head basketball coach. I had to go to Men's Warehouse and buy some clothes because I didn't have clothes to wear because, them basketball guys, they dress up. And so I called our old coach who was on administrative leave and I was like, hey, man, what do I do? How do I do this? I know how to coach, but and I don't have to coach timeouts or any of that. His assistant took care of all that. So the game was at 7. He told me, just show up at about like 5:45 and, make sure the guys get their uniforms and, just make sure things are set up. And I'm like, 5:45, like that's an hour and 15 minutes before game time. Like, well, I show up at like 4:30. And I just sit around and no one shows up till like 6 o'clock. And the kids show up and the basketball guys that come and get their uniforms and they're joking and they're eating sandwiches and they go out and they warm up and then we have a meeting and we talk about the left-handed shooter and this guy's a shooter and I'm just fascinated by all this. And then we go out into the game and they're athletes. They're very different. But, in basketball, when you get checked or you get knocked on the ground, it's usually a foul. And what's funny is that first game, I got 2 technical fouls because we had this little guy and he got into a little scrum with this other little guy and that guy elbowed my guy. And, in basketball, you're not supposed to come off the bench. And I'm going out there and I'm asking the referee, why you call my guy for foul? He elbowed him. And yeah, and anyway, I'm wondering why they were pulling me back to the bench. Like, coach, you got to get back. Anyway, I gave up technical fouls. But from all that and coaching basketball, it made me realize how different wrestling is and why people don't understand. Like, it's crazy. Like a basketball coach, he is so out of the world when he comes to a wrestling match. He's like, what's going on? Like, why didn't you score points for this? Or why didn't you, or that? It's like a foreign language. I see that a lot in wrestling.
Yeah. I think that's another podcast episode in and of itself to talk about how to grow the sport through increasing fan base from outsiders. Because, it's like people talk about things to grow sport to bring people in, but you talk about kind of wrestling being our own worst enemy where, it's this old school mindset where it's almost like we don't want new fans. We don't,
Right.
So it's like that is a podcast in and of itself right there.
And I think that's where the football thing comes in. There's your non-wrestling fans right there. These 2 teams are going to wrestle. Dual meets, I think, are the future to save the sport of wrestling. Because people will go for a 2-hour dual meet and watch their favorite team compete. They don't know who the hell's on the team, but that's man, that's Okie State or that's whoever. It's hard to, tournaments. Hell, sometimes I don't even want to go to tournaments.
Yo.
You got that right.
So,
Coach, I appreciate the insight. We could chat with you all night. You've got a lot of interesting stories, and you are the first wrestling coach to coach basketball on Airey Bros Radio.
yes.
3-0.
Undefeated.
Yeah, 3-0. Congratulations. Coach, is there anything about Fresno City College that we haven't covered that you want the audience to know?
Fresno City College was the first junior college in California and the second junior college in the nation. Was founded in 1910. And we have won 17 state championships at Fresno City College. We started wrestling in 1959. In the first year, we were tied for first. Fresno City College has won a state championship in every decade since then, and we did get the 20s taken care of because we won it in 2022, so we're good for this decade. Wrestling has, been the premier sport at Fresno City College, and I was blessed to get this job from Coach Music. He was the coach before me, and he was a legendary coach. He was also a football coach, and we have a tournament here at Fresno City College called the Bill Music Memorial. The second weekend in November, we named that after Coach Music. And yeah, not so much to Fresno City College, but California Community College is it's a hidden gem, man. It's a really hidden gem. And, a lot of people outside of the state of California have opinions about California, and most of them are probably accurate. But the community college system is a really cool little system. And it's a great system for development and to get matches and to compete. And, I think a lot of people really discount, or believe in the stigma with community college. But, you look at our community college kids, in every sport, and our top 3-4 community colleges in all sports, there's some good teams. A couple of years ago, we beat a 13th ranked NAIA team. So we're pretty good. We're not bad. So, give us a whirl. It's the other thing I tell people all the time, and I don't know what's happened with this, but it doesn't matter where you start the journey. It matters where you finish the journey. When you're an Olympic champion, no one talks about you going to Fresno City College. They just talk about you being an Olympic champion. All these guys in the Super Bowl, half of them started in junior college. And, they don't talk about that, but it's not where you start the journey. You got to start the journey somewhere. So why not start it at junior college? And I will say there's some good coaches, not just me, but there's some good coaches in the junior college, some really good people.
No doubt.
Amen, Coach.
Jim, I got one more.
All right.
Coach, early 2000s, middle 2000s, mixed martial arts starts gaining some steam. The UFC starts to take off. There's a gentleman by the name of Randy Couture that's thumping people, dumping them on their heads, smashing them. Do you get to pull out your picture from the NCAA final championships on the podium and say, I beat that guy?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That's one of my favorite things. I think that's what really helped me over the years is to be the guy that beat Randy Couture. Yeah, that's awesome. I got to see Randy a couple of years ago. He was out here in California. He was actually in Fresno. His Army wrestling coach got inducted into the California Wrestling Hall of Fame. And it was so funny. I just had my knee replaced, and I was maybe 3 months out of surgery, and I saw Randy, and my wife knows Randy too. And we were out in the lobby, and that I knew it too, man. I touched his shoulder, and that sucker freaking Russian 2-on-1 me, man. So we were kind of like doing a little spar out there in the lobby, and I had to fight off that 2-on-1. And I wrestled Randy twice in college. He beat me my junior year in a national tournament, and so I got to wrestle him again my senior year. So, yeah, that's a really cool thing to tell people. And I'll be honest, a lot of people, this is another thing about wrestling. I tell people before, people have asked me about my wrestling career, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a Division I national champion. And they're like, oh, like, oh, wow, like, oh, yeah. I go, hey, do you know this guy named Randy Couture? Oh yeah, I know him. I go, yeah, I beat him. No way. Wow. I'm like, so I get a lot more run out of that than I do out of being a Division I national champ.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Final four, Rich?
Now we can do it. Let's do it.
All right. Coach, are you a coffee drinker?
Oh, big time.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
I drink it black, usually a Keurig, But I got this new referee guy who's making his own coffee now and roasting his own beans, and I'm into some Guatemalan blend or something that I've been drinking lately.
All right.
Do you know the name of the company or anything that he's doing?
You know what? It's string. It's Kenny Goudreau. I don't know his. I'll have to get it to you guys. But he just started his own little company and he roasts his own beans. And now he's making the little Keurig cups for me.
Nice.
Is that you said Goudreau
Kenny Goudreau.
with
Yep.
a G?
With a G. Yep. He
Okay.
wrestled at Columbia. He's an old Columbia guy. He's a California guy, but he wrestled at Columbia. So did his older brother.
Okay. Awesome. We'll have to check that out. We're big coffee guys over here. Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Paul Keysaw?
I have a couple of superstitions that I follow in and out of season, yes. One of them is uh, my shoes. I put my shoes and socks on left sock, left shoe, right shoe. If I don't do that, my day's not right and I can't go on about my day. So I
Just
do
during
have,
wrestling season?
oh, wrestling season, it's worse. Wrestling season, I'm very routine oriented. In fact, I have a cup of coffee between 2:30 and 2:45 every day before wrestling season because practice starts at 3:30. So I need to make sure I got my maximum caffeine in and I'm ready to go at 3:30. So I have a few of those. I got those from my high school wrestling coach. He old Italian guy, first generation American, and he was superstitious. And so I'm getting a lot of that from him, but it helps calm my mind and helps keep me on focus and on task.
And that was left sock, left shoe, right sock, left right shoe?
Yep. And gloves are the same way. Left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand.
Okay. That's right up your alley, Jim.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Coach, I call it OCD. What happened was I was super superstitious with all my wrestling stuff, and then it just kind of wreaked havoc on the rest of my life. So yeah, I could definitely get down with the shoot technique.
All right.
Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
You know what? I've gotten into some podcasts. That's kind of my new thing. I've listened to a few of your guys' podcasts. I've been listening to some wrestling podcasts, and I got these new ear things. I can only wear them in one ear because this ear doesn't work right. It won't stay in this ear. But so yeah, I've been listening to some podcasts. Been kind of cool. I love history, so I love the history of wrestling and just history in general. So
You have a favorite time period in history?
eh, I grew up in PA, so I'm a big, Civil War guy. So I've been to Gettysburg a few times, and I like the Civil War kind of stuff.
Cool. Coach, last one we got for you to close out is a lighthearted one. You know, you mentioned some of those delicious Mexican dishes that you didn't know how to pronounce when you first moved to California. So maybe it's a food item, maybe it's a beverage that we didn't get into. You do have a teenage daughter, I believe, so maybe you're a closet Swiftie. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Um, I like to eat, that's for sure. Um, no, I'm not a Swiftie. Um, I love my dog. I don't know if I have a guilty pleasure. I like to drink palomas down at my little Mexican shop. That's probably my biggest guilty pleasure. Palomas are my new favorite thing in life. That's basically tequila and squirt grapefruit juice.
Okay. All right. Now, you did mention, you like wrestling season in the fall because it gives you an opportunity to be a normal human being and have some free time. We know a lot of wrestling coaches are golfers. California has some great golf courses. Do you play golf at all in your free time? What do you do in your free time other than hang out with your dog?
You know what? I go fishing, I go to the mountains.
Okay.
And my wife will drag me to the beach once in a while. She's a beach lady. But I live an hour from Yosemite. I live about an hour and a half from Sequoia National Park. So Fresno is kind of cool in that aspect. You know, the mountains are right here and I grew up in PA. I was a big hunter guy, but the seasons in California don't line up to hunt out here. So I've turned into a bit of a fisherman. So I go up to the mountains and try to catch some trout and try to appease my OCD that way. That's how I try to appease that. And just I'm a nature guy. I just like to get away, and there's some really cool, mountains out here in California are very different than they are back
Oh yeah.
east.
Yeah.
And so it's right here in my backyard. So, and California has beautiful places to go and see like that. That is one thing about this state is there's some really cool places and things to go see and do. So those are kind of the things that I like to do outside of wrestling.
Okay. Well, the Airey Bros get down in the mountains. We spent a few years in Colorado. We were in Leadville at one point for a while too. So we do love the mountains, and the Sierras are quite beautiful. There's a lot of great hiking out there, so we can get down with that for sure.
Nice.
Coach, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for educating us on Fresno City College, 3C2A, another great coach from the 3C2A on Airey Bros. So thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it, guys. I really appreciate you having me on, and I sure did enjoy my time talking with you guys.
Coach, it's an honor, pleasure to chat with you. We do appreciate your time. It was great to learn more about you and your career and everything you got going on. We have a goal here at Airey Bros Radio is to get one kid from New Jersey at every school that we have coaches on. So maybe we can get you a Jersey boy. That we know the Jersey boys, especially the shore guys, like to go surfing. So maybe we can get you someone out there in California. Best of luck. Enjoy the springtime. Enjoy your time, and best of luck next season. We'll be rooting for you, and we'll be sure to catch up with you next year during the season or after the season as well.
Appreciate it, guys. Nice meeting you guys. Take care.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Coach Paul Keysaw. Make sure you go check out Fresno City College. Go give them a little love on the socials. Check out those links in the show notes. Let them know the Airey Bros sent you. That is it for us this week. We do appreciate you joining us tonight. We will be back next week at our regular scheduled times. We'll be back on Monday. Dan Tudor is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking college recruiting strategies. And then on Tuesday, we're stepping out of our comfort zone a little bit, but maybe not so much. It is in the track and field realm. Coach Paul Barrett from Wyoming is going to be joining us, and he's going to be talking about all things shot put, discus, javelin, hammer throw, and weight throw at Wyoming. So we're excited to chat with him. Enjoy your weekend. Until next time,